Hello there everyone, welcome to part 3 of Let's Talk Criterion. It's the final part, but I have got good news. There is more videos on the way and I'll talk about the next one and what it will be at the end of this video. Now I'm going to go back to the part 2 video because I did say I hadn't seen Safe by Todd Haynes. I've now corrected that small fact. I have seen Safe. Julianne Moore stars a central performance, powerhouse I feel, in this film. She plays a woman who basically discovers she's got a debilitating illness, and she goes to various doctors and psychiatrists even to try and work out what it is, and she just gets worse and worse as the film progresses. I think for her it's really one of her best performances I've seen. She's such a still actress, I find, and less is always more with Julianne Moore. And she's directed very well by Todd Haynes in this film, and it's a sort of an indictment really on the society we live in and the fumes and the pollution and the environmental decay around people that some people are very susceptible to, and it opened my eyes for the first time to something like that. And obviously I take green energy myself, so I try and contribute in my small way to improving the world and the climate around us. So Safe is definitely one I would recommend. So moving on, we're basically here now, and we're at the Stillman Trilogy. Now, Whit Stillman's an interesting director. He filmed 3 films, all sort of in the 90s, and they are Metropolitan, The Last Days of Disco, and Barcelona. Chloe Sevigny stars in The Last Days of Disco, sort of a nightclub girl. She's sort of running around different nightclubs and discos and stuff like that. Metropolitan set further back in time with the sort of the New York acolytes, I suppose, of the time. And Barcelona is basically about an American sort of sensibility in Spain. So that's the Whit Stillman Trilogy. We move on with this, which is the Royal Command performance film from 1948. Showing you the cover close up now. It's A Matter of Life and Death by Powell and Pressburger. Fantastic performance from David Niven as a young RAF man who basically is supposed to die and doesn't. And then there's a big trial up in heaven to try and get him back. And it's just brilliant. What I love is the reverse that they did, because all the scenes in heaven are in black and white and all the scenes down on earth are in colour. There's a fantastic visual effect that happens, I think, twice or possibly 3 times in the movie, which floored me, because given when it was made, they were using split screen photography and it was just amazing. When I say split screen photography, I mean that there's an image superimposed on another image is basically what I'm referring to there. Then we have, of course, Terrence Malick's The Tree of Life. Some people like this movie, some people find it very long and boring and not going anywhere. I personally thought it was superb. Then we have A Raisin in the Sun, fantastic performance in this from Sidney Poitier. He's one of those actors, I think, that's always been overlooked for me. And I think he's just deserves sort of his place in his film canon. His work is superb, and he always gives excellent performances in everything he appears in. This is a 70s comedy. It's light, it's fluffy, it's got Warren Beatty, Goldie Hawn in it, it's shampoo. It's just a delightful hour-and-a-half's watch. Then we have a classic with Marilyn Monroe, Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis. It's the great comedy, Some Like It Hot. Then we have David Byrne's True Stories. Now, I'm a big fan of Talking Heads as a music group anyway, but I think they went to new heights with this, because this film company descends on this small Americana town, and basically John Goodman's great in the central role in this, and the songs are sprinkled throughout, and it's sort of an advertising video for Talking Heads, but yet it's more than that. I even bought the separate soundtrack, which was all remixed because it sounded different from the film. And in fact, you actually get inside, I'm just going to show you the cover now, you get inside the actual set, the CD of the motion picture soundtrack, which is an excellent touch from Criterion there. This one's created by the son of the director Kiarostami, because it was done, sort of brought out on the Criterion after his death. This is 24 frames. Now, the filmmakers among you will know 24 frames per second is what's in a movie, basically. And obviously it becomes 25 frames per second when it's converted to PAL, or video standard here in the UK. So that's what it's filmed at, 24 frames a second. And basically what he did is he turned the camera on different scenes, and throughout the film he sort of shows you different scenes all throughout the film. Not much is happening at all, so it's not what I'd call a riveting watch, but it's interesting because of the way it was filmed. Then we have the second Christian Mungi film. I referred to the first one, Graduation, in the last video. This is 4 months, 3 weeks and 2 days. I haven't seen this yet, but I'm really intrigued to watch it. I'll probably watch it actually today. This is basically set in the Ceausescu period, which of course was a really heavy regime. And this is about a girl who tries to get an abortion, because it was very, very difficult then to get an abortion. And it's quite a strong movie, I would say. Another excellent Sidney Poitier performance in this, of course. This, of course, is In the Heat of the Night. I'll show you the cover of this. Great film. Virgil Tibbs, I think a name that became synonymous with him as an actor. And of course, it's a fantastic performance from Sidney Poitier in this. And equally so, of course, for the red-necked cop he came up against. Also gave an excellent performance. That was Rod Steiger. That's In the Heat of the Night. Then we have a film, I think, which was very brave for Dirk Bogarde to do in the later part of his career, and this is Death in Venice. A man who basically goes to a holiday resort in Venice, of course, and basically he sort of stays there, but has this strange infatuation with this beautiful boy who follows around, almost stalks, I think would be the term nowadays. There's a heartbreaking ending to this film. Fantastic, bravura performance from Dirk Bogarde. This one doesn't be seen very often. It's a Robert Zemeckis film that maybe not many people have heard of, called I Want to Hold Your Hand. The Beatles went to America and broke their American arrival on a television show at the time called the Ed Sullivan Show. Another surprise, a nice little sort of light comedy, obviously a nod to the Beatles around that time. And of course they broke big in America because of their appearance on that television show. This is a nice little comedy. It's going back to 57, and it's directed by Elia Kazan, and it's A Face in the Crowd. A presenter on a radio show decides to play a practical joke on the town. It sort of goes wrong, but it's hilarious. Then we have classic David Lynch. I think everyone wants this, or if they haven't got it, they should have it in their collection. Blue Velvet. Fantastic performance, of course, in this from one particular person, Dennis Hopper, doing his Bean impersonation. Fantastic. Brilliant film, and of course, still enigmatic, as always, with David Lynch. This is a German film by Michael Henke. He tackles difficult subjects like cachet, and I think this film is quite an arresting movie. There was an American remake of it with Tim Roth and Naomi Watts. Best to forget about that, to be honest. This is the film you should see. This is the original German version, and these people go on holiday, innocent holiday, and they get invaded by these two individuals who, quite frankly, terrorise them and make their life absolute hell. I think it's your worst nightmare, and you see it happening on the screen. Funny games. Then we have an absolute giant of a movie. Cost an absolute fortune to make. Had thousands and thousands of extras. The very first sort of film that had a zip line with a camera going over literally an entire battlefield fighting. It's the massive film War and Peace. And showing you the cover, you can see the artwork here. Sumptuous costume designs, fantastic visuals, and a very, very powerful movie. You have to be sitting there for quite a few hours to appreciate the whole thing. It's a long watch. You might want to take it in 2 parts. But it was absolutely superb. Then we have 1984. Now this has always been one of my firm favourites, particularly I think because of the central performances from John Hurt, and I think it could have been the very last performance from Richard Burton before he sadly left us. Great book it's based on, of course, by George Orwell, and this director does a very stark version of Oceania I think it works incredibly well. The score by Dominic Muldowney replaced the original Eurythmics score that was written, or commissioned should I say, for the film. The good news is Criterion has included this as a separate soundtrack, which is excellent. I bought the CD of the score anyway, so I know the sort of songs that they produced, Double Plus Good and stuff like that. But having a look at the cover, as you can see, the artwork sort of speaks for itself. For me, it just brought me into that world, and John Hurt's performance as Winston was superb in this film. Then we have a good film from the 70s, Donald Sutherland and Jane Fonda as the prostitute who sort of is clearly having more trouble than she should in her line of work in Clute, and lovely performance from Jane Fonda here. Now this is a film I think which is interesting because it's 3 films in a set. It's Where is the Friend's House and Life Goes On and Through the Olive Trees. I'm going to show you the covers of this because it's absolutely beautifully put together by Criterion. And this is an interesting films should I say. Now they're held in the northern Iranian town of Kokar. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And basically with each successive film, Kiarostami, yet again it's Kiarostami, takes us deeper into the behind the scenes reality of the film that preceded it. So each one builds on the last. I've only watched the first one, but it was excellent. And as you can see from the cover design, it's very, very well put together. Another little British gem now, Local Hero. Oh wow, great performance from Burt Lancaster in there, and it's just lovely. Again, we're a film team descend on a Scottish rural town and turn it upside down basically. And then, needless as film companies do, just decide they don't want to do it and leave. Great, Local Hero. Then we have Polyester, John Waters. There's a couple of John Waters titles in Criterion. I think John Waters is an interesting filmmaker. He's clearly got his own style. And this one's interesting because when he came out in the cinema, it had a sniff and smell card. Because that happens throughout the movie. And basically, they actually did one. I'm going to show it to you now. They actually did one inside the Criterion Blu-ray. So you scratch and sniff the numbers as it go through the movie for the different smells. That's such a lovely touch. And there's a poster sort of booklet that they do with all the modern releases now in Criterion. Then we have a classic film with Bette Davis, Paul Heinrich and Claude Rains. I think everybody knows and loves Now Voyager. One of the brilliant Bette Davis performances. Okay, we're moving on. I've done a little trick here. I've moved the discs from one side of the room into the cabinet here, what I was looking at before, simply because the light for the camera is better. Always the filmmaker there. Okay, so we move on with Cold War by Paweł Pawlowski. Begins in the Polish countryside where Viktor, a musician on a state-sponsored mission to collect folk songs, discovers a captivating young singer named Zula. Interesting film, very well applauded by international critics, this one. And as you can see, I'm showing you the covers of all of these ones that we're going through now, just so, because it's the end of the collection. Feel Safe by Sidney Lumet, an unnerving procedural thriller, painstakingly detailing an all too plausible nightmare scenario in which mechanical failure jams the US military's chain of command and sends a country hurtling towards nuclear war. Sounds brilliant, doesn't it? It is brilliant. It's like a ticking time bomb, and it's done so well. Sidney Lumet has proved many, many times with films he's directed before how he can make the audience sit on the edge of their seats, and this is no exception. Then we have Alfonso Cuarón's Oscar-winning Roma. I liked Roma. It didn't sort of, oh wow, it didn't have that sort of reaction with it, but it's still beautifully filmed, and it's a beautiful story told by a very, very accomplished director. I just felt that it got more hype maybe than it deserved, to be fair. Now this is Bamboozled. As you can see from the cover, they're white men, not white men, one's a white man, blacked up. Now, obviously now that's a no-no, but back then Spike Lee, as a black director, it was something he did, and that was it. So basically, it's a funny, unapologetic satire from the year 2000. It's definitely worth seeing. Not my favourite Spike Lee film by far, but it's got some interesting performances from Jada Pinkett Smith and Michael Rappaport and Damon Wayans. That is Bamboozled. Then we have Streisand's entry into the Criterion collection. Might see some more Streisand films coming in that she stars in, not necessarily directs. She directs and stars in this. It's Prince of Tides. Great performance in this because she does this sort of thing well. She proved with Chris Christopherson in The Star Is Born years before. And this is with Nick Nolte. Then we have the Wes Anderson film that is my all-time favourite of all the films I have by him. It came out last year in the US on Criterion. It's just about to come out very soon in the UK. It's the Grand Budapest Hotel. I say that because the presentation on this is just superb. I'm just going to shake you through it now. This is just, for me, he's absolutely at the top of his game. The visual style is what you see initially and you think, oh my goodness, it's sumptuous. The composition of each frame is so well thought out. He's put perfect actors in those roles. Ralph Fiennes is amazing in it. William Dafoe is amazing in it. It's just absolutely flawless as far as I'm concerned, as far as Wes Anderson goes. I'm just so excited to see what he brings us with this release he's coming out with later this year. That is the Grand Budapest Hotel. Then we have a classic from the 60s. It's on every Christmas without fail on TV. We all love it. We all know it so well. It's The Great Escape. Fantastic performance from Steve McQueen, Richard Attenborough. Oh my goodness, the list of people in this are endless. And it's just such a great movie. A great nod to the POWs of the Second World War, and a fantastic performance from Steve McQueen. Now then we come to Husbands by John Cassavetes. I've dipped my toe in the water for the first time with the John Cassavetes film. I think it's a whole box set in Criterion from Cassavetes. This is Ben Gazzara, Cassavetes and Peter Falk in a film about Long Island family men who, following the sudden death of their close mutual friend, channel their grief into an epic multi-day bender that takes them from Manhattan to London. It just intrigued me, and it was a British release not long ago, and I thought I'm going to try Cassavetes. Then we have Scorsese shorts. Now obviously Criterion, I'm not saying they're not dragging the barrel by no means, I'm not going to say that, but obviously as far as Scorsese's concerned, there's only so many films they can release. This is a classic callback to his early filming days where he did a number of shorts. I think there's 5 on here. The one that sort of got me was the one with his mother and father being interviewed by him. That was really very, very good. And A Close Shave, well, it's just one of those things. I think it was experimental, and it's sort of, you saw the early sort of horrific nature of Scorsese there. Then we have Wildlife, Paul Dano's directorial debut. Now this has got a great cast in it. It has, as you can see from the cover there, showing you the back as well. It's got Jake Gyllenhaal, Carey Mulligan, and a young fellow called Ed Oxenbould. It's set in the 1960s in Montana. Father goes to fight a forest fire and leaves his wife and his son to look after themselves. It's a good directorial start for Paul Dano. I'm looking forward to see more of him as a director. Jake Gyllenhaal, of course, is great, and Carey Mulligan is great. That's Wildlife. Then we have a Paul Mazursky film called An Unmarried Woman. Now this is one woman's journey of self-discovery, bringing about a warmly human cultural conversation about female liberation. Not everybody's cup of tea this, but I like Paul Mazursky, both as a screenplay writer and as a director. Then we have my only Buster Keaton, again came out recently in the UK, The Cameraman. I just wanted to get it to try, I haven't watched it yet, but I wanted to get it to see if I liked Buster Keaton's style particularly. I think I've seen a couple of Buster Keaton films on TV, but to be honest, they didn't really. There wasn't something, it wasn't like Harold Lloyd, it just didn't get me, the same as Harold Lloyd. But I'm going to give The Cameraman a go, and then I'll make my mind up after this. Now this film is absolutely amazing. As you can see from the cover, beautiful artwork on this. There was a British release on this which I totally ignored because I knew Criterion were bringing it out in America last year. So I held out, bought the Criterion version, and very glad I did. Celine Sciamma directs this film, and it is just beautiful. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous story two beautiful women, and it's just such a gentle film. Portrait of a Lady on Fire. I think that this could be just one of those films that everybody sort of puts up on a pedestal going forward, and deservedly so. Now, the extras on this is sort of mainly why I sort of held out for the Criterion. There's conversations between the director and the critic Dana Stevens, new interviews with the actors Adele Hanel and Naomi Merlon, an interview with the cinematographer Claire Mathon from the 2019 Cannes Film Festival, which I know Criterion always do that, an interview from 2019 with artist Hélène Edelmer, pardon my French, on creating the paintings for the film, and an essay by the film critic Ela Bittencourt. Great. So that's why I held out for the Criterion, because there's so much more on that than there is on the UK release. Next one, Come and See, by Ilan Klimov. Wow. You ever want to see a film about war from a young man's perspective, then this is a film to watch. I still see the images in this film, particularly in one in particular. I'm not going to spoil it for people who haven't seen it. There's one particular part of the film that you feel in fact, I did look away from the screen. It was absolutely horrific. And it happened. That's the awful thing. It actually happened. So it's a sort of history lesson, this film, as well as being a fictional account. It's very little dialogue in it, but then it doesn't actually need it, to be honest. It's the story that the filmmaker tells. The young man went through it, there's no doubt about it. Come and See. The young actor apparently went through hell filming it as well. Then we have War of the Worlds, a classic. I think it eclipses all the War of the Worlds film versions since 1953. The Martians come to Earth. What can I say? Ooh-la. Well, fantastic. Fantastic covers, you can see. Fantastic artwork there. And a great transfer of this movie. Lots of supplemental features, including the Mercury Theatre on the Air radio play by Orson Welles, which, of course, panicked America, I remember, in 1938. The night that panicked America, I think the phrase was used. Marriage Story. It was on Netflix. I saw it on Netflix, and then, of course, they announced Criterion release. I think there have been 3 Netflix to Criterion movies so far, I believe. Noah Baumbach again. Noah Baumbach is certainly the director to watch at the moment as far as contemporary stuff is concerned. He does it so well. And of course, 2 great performances from Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson. Just showing you it now. It's absolutely beautiful design, and of course those 2 letters are such a lovely touch, because I think you see one of the letters in the film but not the other, and it's just great. It's just a brilliant film, and of course it did incredibly well for Netflix, and they do make good choices with stuff like this sometimes. Christ Stopped at Eboli by Francesco Rossi. This is quite a film. It's just 4 hours long, he says. As you can see from the cover, it's an exile and epic immersion into the world of rural Italy during the regime of Benito Mussolini. So that's an interesting period of history anyway. And basically, it's a political activist, Carlo Levi, bringing a monument of 20th century autobiography to the screen with quiet grace and solemn beauty. I think Criterion's right up about that, sort of says it all. The next one, if you haven't got that in your collection, I don't know why, it's Parasite. Very clever cover, of course. If you've seen the film, you'll know what the cover design represents. I saw this first in last February when I bought the American Blu-ray release, because I had to see it just before it won the Oscar. Wow. I started watching a film thinking, okay, let's see where this is going, and then suddenly, when they got to the house and they inveigled themselves into the family, I thought, oh my God, this is just out there somewhere else. And of course, it just got better and better and better. And then the ending of the film, I'm not going to give anything away if you haven't seen it. Wow. Parasite has had multiple releases, Steelbooks in the UK. It had a 4K release, which I also bought. A black and white version was made of it as well. Oh, just absolutely fantastic. I think one of the jewels in Criterion's crown, this one. This is one I've wanted on Blu-ray for such a long time. because of the performance in it from Cher. This is Moonstruck. I love Cher, and of course Olympia Dukakis and her both won Oscars for the film, and it's just great. It's just great. I must say I prefer Nicolas Cage's 80s performances to the ones he gives nowadays. They're too mad for me. Ronnie's great. He has his temper. It comes out in certain scenes, and it's just great. He works well in the film, and it's just delightful. The music is delightful in it. It's just a lovely romance story. And then we have Jim Jarmusch. This is the only Jim Jarmusch title I actually have from him in the Criterion collection. Forrest Whitaker's performance in Ghost Dog, The Way of the Samurai is great. And it's recently come out on Criterion. In fact, there's a little booklet, I'm just going to show you it now. It's called Hagakure, and it's a little booklet that basically is a guide to samurai. And that's a nice little touch that comes with the actual set, as you can see. Just show it to you now. It's just a fold out thing, as you can see. So that is Ghost Dog, The Way of the Samurai. I recommend that one definitely. And now we're on to the final few, coming up to the present release sort of roster. Who wouldn't have The Irishman, another Netflix film, and of course Criterion did it proud when they brought it out a little while ago. Fantastic collection of features in The Irishman. It's a long movie, and of course it shows that of course Scorsese is still a filmmaker to be reckoned with. He still uses his three go-tos, De Niro, Pacino and Pesci. As you can see, the artwork is just superb, specially commissioned artwork, beautifully done. For me, there was only one thing that kept taking me out of the movie, and that was the visual effects of the aging process, or making them younger, should I say. It just kept taking me out of the film because you know they're not young, the actors playing the part. It was obviously a tool he wanted to use, but for me it just brought me out of the movie every time I saw it, which is rather unfortunate. Then we have a film I'm so pleased. It came out in 4K and I bought the 4K version of it from Arrow, but of course the Criterion version has other things on it, and particularly it has the commentary from Cronenberg from the film, which isn't on the Arrow version, and that was the main reason I had to have it on Criterion. And I watched the film again with that commentary. He's such an intelligent man, David Cronenberg. I'm not saying don't buy the 4K version of it because it looks fantastic and the features are great on the Arrow presentation, but if you want the commentary, you have to buy 2 copies of the film, I'm afraid, because it just isn't available on that Arrow release. And it's such a good commentary. This is Crash, his 1996 film. And I love it. I think it's a great movie. Love Holly Hunter in it. Elias Koteas is great in it as well. And James Spader. Wow. That's Crash. I'm bringing us right up to the present. Bob Dylan's Rolling Thunder Revue. Martin Scorsese directed this documentary about the 1975 bicentennial, basically with Joan Baez, Allen Ginsberg, Joni Mitchell, and it's called the Rolling Thunder Revue. It's a variety show that travelled around, and it's great. It's a good documentary. Scorsese covers the topic really, really well. So I come now to the end of the collection. I hope you enjoyed part 3. There are more I've ordered. I've ordered Chop Shop and Man Pushes Cart by the same director. They're coming out. Looking forward to the 2 James L. Brooks releases, Lost in America. That's coming, and Defending Your Life. I'm looking forward to those 2. Ordered The Ascent, which is supposed to be a brilliant movie, coming out I think next week. So there's so much coming to Criterion in the next few months, and obviously I'll touch on those as I get them into my collection. So I'm really excited about what they've got to offer for the rest of 2021. Now, in my next video, I did tell you I would tell you what that was. It's going to be the start again, of a three-part tour of my 4K collection. I've gathered about over 200 4Ks, lots of the box sets that have come out last year as well, and some interesting stuff because I buy an awful lot of American releases, so there'll be a chance for some collectors to see the American versions of the movies, and that'll be useful for them if they want to add them to their collection. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please keep watching those movies and stay safe.